Hello and welcome to How to Use Renpy. I am your host, Shay. Now, I always get people who know that I code, I always get them telling me, "Oh, you're so amazing, you're so smart, I could never do that." And I'm just like, no, not really. I use Renpy. It's a really easy program. But then I show them the kinds of games that I'm coding, or I'm in the progress of coding, and I'll show you a script right now. And they're always like, "Oh my gosh, I could never do this." And I'm here to tell you, yes, you can. You just need to know how. Now, the tutorials on Renpy's website can be a bit confusing, and it took me a long time before I could actually make something work. So, I'm here to put things into simple terms for you. All right, first we're going to go down to Create New Project. Click that, continue. We'll just give it a random name. Since there is actually already a tutorial on here, I named it Tutorial Game because, yeah. And I tend to go with the generic, with the default screen size, and we don't have time to fuss over colors here, so we'll just go with that one. It will take a minute to do this. Occasionally it will say it's not responding, but it is actually working, don't worry. And there we go. See, now you can see your game up here. And the list goes in alphabetical order, by the way, so that's why this one's up at the top. Now, we don't really need all of these. All you really need to know to make a working game is the script.rpy file. But I will show you something else first. You'll want to open the directory game directory, and note this is the file. Do not open it outside of the ren'py program, otherwise it will corrupt your data. Well, your script data anyway. However, this does not mean you can't do anything with it. If for some reason you need to get rid of your computer, or you need to you need to send it to school or something like I did, I would recommend going in here and copying this file and backing it up through whatever means you can, and then that way you won't lose your progress, because there's no other way to save your game on here. Anyway, you want to go over here to edit it. Go to Edit File and click that. Now, there are only two things that we need to keep here. The first is label start, and the second is return. These two things are what is necessary for the game to run. Nothing else is strictly necessary. These are just comments that I don't typically add because, I mean, I'm just focused on actually making the game, and the comments don't show up in the game, but they're there, so yeah. And I don't know how that happened. Delete all that so we can start fresh. Now, I'm going to be the first to admit that I do sometimes need a reminder of how certain things work, so I'm going to open one of my personal games as well. Let's see. You'll notice this star next up here. That means you need to save the changes. We're not going to save yet, though. I'm just telling you that's what it means. So it means you have data that needs to be saved. So if you suspect that you'll have to be off and on, I suggest that you save whenever you see this little star here. Now, this is how character names are decided. Well, that's the shortcuts. You could just do like this. That would be the character's name, and then this would be the dialogue. However, it is much, much simpler to just do define the like that. It is just much simpler to do it like that, and then just type D and hello. Because you don't want to be stuck there typing Dylan over and over. Alright, now if you, these here are colors for the names that showed up. Let's say we give Dylan, I use htmlcolorcodes.com for this because I don't automatically know the colors. I already have one picked out for this. I am sorry about that. Hang on. Okay. Now let's add a second one. And we won't give this one a color for her name, for his or her name, because this is you. Hi, you. Okay, now make sure you put the character definitions above start. Okay? Below start is where your game dialogue, your or your variables or stats will go. I won't go into variables or stats in this episode, but I will go over it in a later episode. This episode, we're just going to make a very, very simple game. So, let's see. My fingers are slippery, so I'll have to backspace a lot. Dylan stares at you longingly. Now, because I did not add D or Y before this, the game will treat it as if a narrator is talking. Of course, it won't actually say narrator. It's just no one speaking. It's just narration. Now we're going to look at how to make a menu, because what would be a game like this without menus and choices? So you type menu and make sure you have that colon there, because without it, it won't indent. You need that colon there so it registers it as an actual menu. And then when it indents, you type in a choice. For this case, we will choose simple yes or no options. First, we do the yes. And again, make sure you have that colon there. And make sure the apostrophes, is that what they're called? Well, you can have apostrophes too, but quotation marks. Quotation marks or apostrophes are there. I prefer quotation marks because some letters will use apostrophes, so you want to make sure you can it can distinguish when the actual end of the line is. Anyway, click enter again and it will indent once more, and then when you're done with this option, the first option, you hit the backspace after entering. You hit enter, then backspace, and then it will take you back to column whatever. In this case, it's column 8. And it will, this is where you type in another choice. In this case, it will be no. And then once you've made however many options you want, you don't have to just have 2. You can have 3 or 4. Well, I guess you can have as many as can fit on the screen of a computer. I mean, that's your limit. Anyway, you'll go back to whatever column the menu was started on. In this case, 4. And then that's just best to do if you have a line or multiple lines that's common within a choice. Like, you don't want to type the end after both of these, right? So you just type it here. Of course, if you have, ideally your game would keep going after this, but since this is a very, very short game for a very short tutorial, this is where we'll end for the day. And make sure that the game ends on return. Okay? Click save, and now we will see the fruits of what we have just done. It will be a very short game, but it will show you what we have done. You want to click launch project whenever you want to test out what you're doing. Start. Dylan stares at you longingly. He wants you to kiss him, you realize. Do you? And this is where our choices came up. You can either click yes or no. We'll click yes for once. Kisses you back at the end. And now let's try it again, but choose no. See, that's where notice how this is the same color as the generic game itself. If we had chosen a red color, it would have been red. If it had chosen orange or green, it would have been orange or green. And it's probably barely there, but you'll notice that Dylan's is slightly different because we chose a different color for him. I probably should have chosen a more... I wasn't thinking, I'm sorry. Anyway. And the end shows up for both of them because it occurs after the menu. Yeah. Okay. Now, next time, I will show you how to do variables and stats. All right?